Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video. And in this video, I'm going to address a question that's come up a few times. It's been several months since somebody asked me this the last time, but I never got around to making a video on it. The question is, can you just point your vessel at a planet and then fire the engines and just basically keep going toward that direction until you arrive at the planet? Can you do that? Or if you can't do it, then why can't you do it? Well, it's kind of a complicated answer. It's not as simple as yes or no. The bottom line is, in the nature in which that question is posed, I would have to say the answer is no. You can't just point the vessel at Mars, for example, and then fire the engines continuously without, ever stopping and then arrive at Mars. And the reason you can't do that is very simple. The planets move around the sun, fairly quickly. So if we're here at Earth, which is a long way away from Mars, and we point the nose of the vessel at Mars, and we just continually fire the engines, we're going to eventually, we'll cover the vast distance, and we'll, assuming that we have unlimited fuel, we'll keep going in a basically a straight line. It's not exactly a straight line because we are curved due to the gravitational influence of Earth and the sun. But what will end up happening is, after several days, several hours, several days of burning the engines, where the nose is pointed at, Mars is obviously going to keep moving in its path around the sun. The person that asked me this question said, well, can't you just adjust the nose of the vessel so that you keep tracking Mars? And I guess that question just comes from a lack of understanding of Newtonian physics. You can adjust the nose of the vessel so that it's pointing to Mars, but all the momentum that you had while burning the engines while facing Mars isn't going to just suddenly cancel out and go to zero. So when you turn the nose of the vessel towards Mars like this way, well, all the momentum that you had is still there. So you're going to be burning like that. You're going to be burning sort of at an angle. So that's why you can't do it in that way. Now, having said that, there is a way that you can do this in Orbiter without using an MFD like TransX or IMFD. We can get to Mars using a very crude, ugly, inefficient method. In order to do that, you basically want to turn on or uncheck the box in the parameters for limited fuel so that we have unlimited fuel, because the only way we're going to be able to do this is if we have fairy dust. Well, I guess the Delta glider is already powered by fairy dust, but if we have unlimited fairy dust. So let's just take a look here at what I would say you could do. And again, I would never recommend this. This is terrible. Don't do this. Learn how to use the MFDs. It's doing what I'm about to show you is absolutely pointless. So we're in orbit around the Earth. I'm assuming that you can get up off the ground and get into orbit. I'm going to press F9 to bring up the celestial view, and let's get rid of the panel here so that we can see the planets around the ecliptic plane. And let's warp time forward until we see Mars. So there's Neptune. We're not going to go to Neptune. That'd take forever. There's Uranus. That's way too far out. Jupiter, again, too far away. And there's Mars. Okay, so now that we've got Mars, let's rotate and just point the nose of the vessel at Mars. And the first thing I want to point out already is that the velocity vector is over here, and we're now pointing the vessel here. And remember, wherever the velocity vector is pointing, that's where we're going. So just because I now have the nose pointed at Mars doesn't mean I'm headed towards Mars. I'm headed this way. I'm headed where the velocity vector is pointed. So now let's engage the full power of the main engines. And we're just going to hold those down and we're basically never going to shut them off here for quite some time.
Translation rotation.
I'm just going to kind of make sure that the nose of the vessel is pointed more or less at Mars. And due to the amount of time that this will take, we're definitely going to use some time acceleration. So let's warp time forward. And we can see the velocity vector coming around. It's mostly at this point affected based on our current orbit around the planet. But as our velocity increases and we're now getting to the point where we're escaping Earth, so the velocity vector will sort of straighten out and get more in line with the nose. But you'll notice that it's currently over here, so that's actually the direction we're going. So even though we're pointing at Mars right now, we're actually going this direction and through space. Now we're up to 13 kilometers per second, 14 kilometers per second, and we're still going. And notice just in this little bit amount of time, Mars has already moved. The nose of the vessel's there, and Mars has already moved a bit off. So we have all this velocity that we're putting in this direction, and Mars is slowly drifting this way. So you can kind of start to understand why we can't just continually point at Mars and arrive there, because we'll have so much velocity that we'll miss Mars, tremendously. Let me go back to real time for just a moment. Let me repoint the nose of the vessel at Mars. And let's go out to 100 warp for a little bit. Now you can see the velocity vector starting to pull around this way because we're starting to get enough velocity that we're overcoming the pull of the Earth or whatever. It's the Earth back there behind us. And we're just going to keep burning until we get to, say, maybe 100 kilometers per second. And if we want to, we can go back to real time for just a moment and repoint the nose of the vessel at Mars, although it really doesn't even matter. Let's go back out to 100x, and again, we're going to go just for basically a target of about 100 kilometers per second. Maybe let's actually go a little faster than that even. Let's go out to maybe 200 kilometers per second. This is really ridiculous, and this is why we need unlimited fuel, because the Delta glider, as much fuel as it has, doesn't have enough to do what we're trying to do here. And we just escaped Earth a moment ago, or at least we got away from the strong gravitational influence of Earth. We're now orbiting the sun. So we kind of look backwards, we can see the Earth moon back there. Velocity vector's over here, so that's actually the direction we're going at the moment. Mars is here. And we'll go ahead, let's go out to 200 kilometers per second, then we'll cut the engines. That'll be plenty fast enough. Let's do a little bit more time warp. Okay, good enough. Kill the engines, and now what we're going to do, let's bring up the panel so we can see. Let's reference Mars. And let's just kind of warp time forward for a while until we get a little bit farther out, so we're closer to Mars. Let's watch our altitude here. Make sure that that's always going down. And what I'll do is I'll continue to warp time forward basically until the altitude reaches a point where it's not getting any lower, which will be coming up here soon. We're almost at the periapsis. So that'll be as close to Mars as we're going to get. And now let's when we're about 5,000 seconds out. Okay, now what we're going to do, now that we're about 5,000 seconds from periapsis, we're never going to get to Mars on our current trajectory. Okay, we're just going to, this is as close as we're going to get about right now, and we're just going to keep flying out in some ridiculous orbit, some oblivious part of space, because Mars is now way over here. Now, it wouldn't do us any good to just turn toward Mars and start burning the engines, because we have all this momentum that's sending us out this way. So what we want to do is we actually want to eliminate as much of this velocity as possible, if not just eliminate all of it. So let's go to retrograde. Okay, now we're in the retrograde position. Now let's eliminate pretty much all that velocity. Warp time forward because it's going to take a while. Can only warp time forward at 100 apparently with the retrograde autopilot set. So if we kind of think about like a skater on a skating rink, you know, they're sliding across the ice and they want to go this way. They want to go, you know, like at a right angle to the direction. Well, it's hard for a skater on ice to just suddenly change direction because they're sliding this way. So you need to kind of come to a stop and then go this way, and that's what we're going to do here. So actually, let me turn that retrograde autopilot off so I can use a little bit more time warp. Basically bringing our orbital velocity to near zero. And that should be pretty sufficient here in a second. Something like that. Let's kill the engines.
Translation, rotation.
Now let's realign our vessel towards Mars. Kill the rotation, and we're going to kind of point towards Mars again. Re-engage the main engines, and now we're going to put all of our velocity in this direction. We're going to point towards Mars. Let's go back out to, I don't know if we need to go all the way to 200 kilometers per second, but we'll go pretty fast. So we'll go out to 1,000 just to speed ourselves up here. Watching the altitude, notice it's counting down, so we're getting closer to Mars at this point. 200 is a good number. Let's do that again. Okay, so now we have 200 kilometers per second towards Mars, but again, Mars is going to move, so we're not going to get there, but let's just warp time forward until we're as close to Mars as we can get. And we'll know that by watching the periapsis. You can see Mars there. It's kind of flying by. Let's go back to real time. Instead of 5,000 seconds, let's do it now, because 5,000 seconds wasn't enough. So now we need to repeat this process. Let's go back to retrograde and eliminate all this velocity. Okay, and we're going to bring it basically down to zero again. Zero might not actually be the optimum number. Since we're in orbit around the sun, we might actually... And I need to kill the engines. Let me eliminate a little bit more of that, because I got that off. Okay, pretty close. Kill the engines. And let's again rotate towards Mars.
Translation, rotation.
And I saw it over there, so let me kill rotation. We're currently 1 million kilometers out, I think. That's 1.667, that's 1.6 gigameters. I believe that's 1.6 million kilometers. So relatively speaking, we're actually close. And let's engage the main engines, and we're just pointing right towards Mars. Let's get up. This time we don't want to go all the way out to 200 kilometers per second. That's too fast since we're getting in the ballpark here. So let's maybe just go up to 50 kilometers per second. About like that. Let's kill the engines. And let's warp time forward until we're at periapsis again. But you can kind of get the idea here. What we're doing is we're just, you know, engaging engines and getting closer with each one, and then eliminating the velocity, then pointing back towards Mars, and so on. And this is really the only way you could do. This is the only way you could do it, in my opinion. Okay, velocity basically back down to zero. So let's kill that. Go back to real time.
Translation. Rotation.
Figure out where Mars is at now. I think it's up here somewhere. Okay, we've seen the forward velocity vector twice. So let me go back to that position. And let's just rotate kind of up. Get a really wide field of view so I can, there it is. And once again, we'll engage the engines and head towards Mars now that we're only 688,000 kilometers out. Notice it's actually getting larger at the moment, so we're heading away from Mars, but that'll change here in a second. And again, we'll probably go up to 50 kilometers per second. That seems reasonable. And let's go 75. Because remember, all the velocity that we put in, we've got to take back out. Okay, it's warp time forward. We're getting closer. Periapsis is coming up in 3,000 seconds. Go to retrograde and eliminate all that velocity. A little more. Okay, velocity is more or less 0. Back to real time. Find Mars. Let me change the field of view to its wide.
Translation. Rotation.
And hopefully you can easily understand how ridiculously stupid this is, this whole method. And there's Mars. Add in some velocity. Currently going away from Mars, but it'll turn around and get closer here in a second. Okay, that's all the velocity we're going to put in this time. Okay, and now retrograde again. Out to 100,000. Overshot.
Translation. Rotation.
And we are pretty close to Mars. We're actually, let's do an auto reference. We're actually close enough to Mars now that it's the strongest source of gravity. So we can now actually just start using basic orbital mechanics to get into orbit around Mars. Let's first of all So that's the retrograde velocity vector. What we want to do, let's actually just do a little bit of time warp here for a second. Okay, the altitude's increasing, so we're currently on our way out from Mars. So let's just kind of point the... Let's actually go to a 90-degree angle from Mars. Should be 270. This way we can work with the inward and outward. There the PEA is going up, getting closer to 0, and you can see the orbit's becoming more circular. Eccentricity coming down. Let's go with that. Now let's warp time around. Let's get rid of the celestial view. We don't need it anymore. Let's warp time around until we're at periapsis so that we can decrease our apoapsis more efficiently. Okay, getting close to that point. Closer. Let's go with that. Let's go retrograde. And let's bring up burn time calculator and just let it circularize the orbit for us. Go ahead and warp time forward to get closer to the time to ignition. Almost there. Okay, there we have it. Let's take a look at where we're at. So we are now in orbit around Mars. It's a high orbit. You know, we obviously want to go around to apoapsis and periapsis and bring our orbit down so that it's more manageable, but we're close to Mars. You know, I mean, we're right here. We've got a gravitational influence of 0.99. So there you have it. If you absolutely refuse to learn how to use TransX or IMFD, then that is a method that you can use to go from Earth to probably anywhere in the solar system. It's absolutely stupid. I don't recommend it. You learn nothing by doing this, but there you have it. That's one way to do it. I hesitate to say, if you like this video, you know, hit the like button, because this video isn't one to like, but nevertheless, I answered the question that has come up a few times in the past. So if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you like all this stuff, hit the subscribe button and check out my Facebook page. There's a link in the description down below, and I'll see you in the next video. And the next one won't be stupid.